Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. I'm back with one of these critique videos for you. So essentially it's an informal analysis. I'm going to be pausing the video, I'm going to be talking about what's going on. So if you just want to watch the original performance or you prefer something where someone doesn't really comment on it, this probably isn't for you. If you maybe want to learn something new or get some insights or ideas, then stick around. On that note, if you want to learn some Brian May's signature guitar licks with tabs and breakdown and all that sort of thing, check out the eye up there. Basically, to get the licks, I have to consume a lot of content, for lack of a better phrase, by the guitar. So listen to a lot of their solos, a lot of their songs and live performances. So this is essentially me documenting part of the process. Do the old subscribe and enable all notifications if you want to be kept up to date with new content I put out. Hit like if you enjoy it, and feel free if you dislike it to smash dislike as well. If you let me know what you don't like, I can take it on board. I can at least try and do something about it. But yeah, as I'm sure you've already gathered from the title and me saying Brian May, he is the guitarist in question. I've got a solo up here from, I'm assuming it's from a gig he's done with Queen. There's a massive gong the drummer is walking away from, so let's see what Brian May is going to pull out the bag. Okay, this is kind of cool. You can sometimes tell what you're getting off the bat by how a guitarist starts their solo. Like if they come out with a big kind of chugging thing like Paul Gilbert might have done with the eye up there. If they come out doing a kind of big bends or sort of kind of balls to the wall showmanship, you can kind of get an idea of what's happening. Here was this really nice kind of ethereal feedback building up, and then he's done this kind of this move with his guitar where I think he's got like a delay pedal on as well, so we're getting the same sound kind of echoing. Essentially that's what a delay does, is going to take the same signal and reproduce it. And the spotlights being on him, the many spotlights, I assume we're going to get a solo that's probably going to build up and be quite showmany. I think he's going to kind of, it's arena rock, so you'd kind of expect that. Let's see how very wrong I am though. Cool, so just to clear up what's happening there is he's doing a thing that is called feedback, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Basically when the guitar is up loud enough, or even if you're a fairly quiet volume but next to your amp, it'll create a feedback loop. So essentially what's happening is the sound from the guitar is going from the strings into the pickup, down the lead into the amp, and coming out of the amp. Now if you put the guitar in front of the amp or it's very loud, that sound goes back into the guitar. So it goes through the strings, through the pickup, through the lead, back into the amp, and the feedback loop continues. And this is what you get. You'll get like a very pure tone like that. You'll get one note will tend to sustain over the others. So you can hear the delay there. It's roughly going ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. So he's playing, he's got something panned to the left is the first delay, then the right is the second. So you get original, delay, delay, dun, 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 dun. Roughly at that kind of speed. And I suspect the reason he's playing these chords is in part so he can get in sync with his delay, because I know Brian May is playing a little bit, and I think he's probably going to do some pretty cool stuff with the delay as we build into this. Cool, so when he's playing the chords, it lets you hear where the delay is, and him as well, because I suspect he's not got a click in or anything like that. Like nowadays, a lot of times musicians will have a monitor, like an in-ear monitor, and there'll be a click track in the back, so everything will be programmed to MIDI, and you know where everything is. It's kind of essentially lined to the grid, but this is a bit of a more rock and roll approach. And like I said, by doing the chords, you could hear where it was, and then when he's playing the single note, he's getting himself in really nice timing, so the delay, he's basically hitting when the delay is happening. Now he's doing this riff, so whenever he starts to play different chords, we're getting this cool, almost like cascading effect of like multiple guitars coming out of the ether. It's a really genius way of filling out guitar solo, because it can sometimes sound a little bit empty, particularly when there's been a full band playing if it just goes down to the guitar. So when you have these kind of luscious delays going on where it's extra guitar signal, that's this really kind of full, rich, fat, creamy sound. Like, it sounds like he's got two rhythm guitarists that are just watching him and playing the chords after him, but this is just the delay. And this is another cool way of using it. He's playing the chord and muting it straight away, so we're getting this boom, dum, dum, almost like fireworks going off or something, compared to the kind of like atmospheric cascade we had previously. I'm loath to pause it, but I want to explain what's happening there. He's harmonizing with himself. Who needs a twin guitar assault when you've got Brian May and a delay pedal? So he's playing notes there and then playing notes that harmonize with him. It sounds like he was going up in thirds. So you might have, when you listen to that, you might have thought, oh, it sounds a bit like Thin Lizzy. And yeah, it's the exact same concept. And apparently that's how Thin Lizzy developed that twin lead sound, was kind of by mistake. I think one of the guitarists started playing the line either too late, or there was a delay on that knocked the lead line out, but it harmonized nicely just kind of through the kind of magic fluke that is is writing music. It stacked up in thirds nicely, and I thought, oh, that's like a really nice sound. We could have two guitars doing the same rhythmic melody but playing different notes so as to harmonize with each other. But Brian May, delay pedal, that's all you need here, isn't it? So obviously he's turned the delay pedal off here. We've got a nice kind of stereo sound going on. So I don't know if it's a cool amping technique that's happening, but you can hear his main guitar, and then it's almost like the kind of reverby one still on the left and right speakers as well. There's a lot of Brian May-isms going on here. There's a lot of staccato playing, so very dit, 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 you know, letting the notes kind of short and sharp is how I like to think of it, kind of punchy notes. These kind of regal trills that he does, very classical, like you can imagine them being played on a violin or something like that. And of course, pre-bend, so this is a big part of Brian May's playing. It's something Richie Blackmore does quite a bit as well. Rather than bending up to note where you get this, what he quite often does is pre-bends the note, so he starts at the pitch that, and then he can kind of dip down from it. The advantage to doing this is when you pre-bend to a note, I've kind of covered this before, so you can get a more in-depth analysis of this particular concept with the eye up there. But when you bend to a note, you can use vibrato and make the pitch go both up and down. So say this is your target pitch and you bend to it. When you bend the note, you can go above the pitch, you can go below the pitch, and you get this really nice vocal sound. The way guitars work, unless you're using your whammy bar, is that if you've got a string and it's unbent, you can only go up in pitch. So it sounds a bit less vocal, it sounds more, a bit maybe more mechanical, more like a guitar. This is a more kind of human way, if you want to think of it that way. You can, yeah, so if that's a sound that you like, that's one of the easiest ways to get it. That and just using your whammy bar. That was cool. So he's got this like da-dun, 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 and then he's building up the dynamics. So first he's doing it all kind of muted and staccato and quietly. Now he's letting the kind of notes blend into each other, hitting them harder, hitting it fuller. it's in and of itself, playing this well in time with the delay pedal is also, it's also a difficult thing to do, because if you mess up one thing, that's coming back to haunt you, right? If you make one dud note or you play something out of time, it's coming back around. A side note more than anything else, he's doing that kind of status quo thing he was doing there. That's a really nice way of doing it. You can play triads and just kind of bounce between, essentially going between the 1 chord and the 4 chord, and you could do it with the greatest of ease, as he was doing there. More of a side note than anything else. I haven't really talked about the showmanship, which is great when he came up to the front there, particularly like the little guy giving him the thumbs up. It was just vibing off that dude so much. But here when he's gone up to the drum riser, that's his way of saying to the drummer, I want to move on to this next section of the solo where the drums come in as well. It's just a really nice way of doing it. He just goes up to the drum riser, drummer knows the cue, well that's, I'll go on and I'll start playing the drums now. There's a real kind of fuzzy warmth to his guitar tone as well, so it makes those, when he's playing the harmonies on the higher strings, it makes them really pleasing and soft to listen to. It does mean you kind of sacrifice maybe some clarity in the lower end, but it's also an aesthetic choice. You might prefer that kind of more kind of fuzzy, slightly less defined, but nice warm kind of chord sound. Whereas if you take it about like Megadeth or something like that, they prefer this kind of like tinny, kind of in your face, really harsh sound. So it's just an aesthetic choice, but I do have to say, in terms of the high notes, I always really like that nice rounded kind of neck pickup warm sound. The trade-off then is that I have really low and defined lower strings, so it's always kind of finding the sweet spot for yourself. Alright, well, I'm pretty certain I do not have the signature licks that I'm looking for from that performance. I did thoroughly enjoy it, and it also highlighted a lot of techniques or concepts that Brian May uses that I really want to kind of encapsulate in the licks. Having said that, I'm sure I won't be able to cram all the stuff we've touched on here into 3 little licks, so what I'll do now is break down some of the concepts we've looked at. Okay, there are a few things I want to touch on. First, we're just going to look really briefly at the tones. I've got like an AC20 style amp here. In front of it, I've got a treble booster. I've not really got much treble in it at all. It's really only working on the frequencies between about 300 Hz and maybe 1800, something like that. So this gives that kind of woolly kind of big sound like we heard in that video. You can go to your neck pickup and it means the higher strings going to be a bit warmer. You can always adjust your tone as well, or on the bridge, to get that kind of warmer Brian May type lead sound. So before we get into the meat of this, which is going to be focusing on those cool delay tricks, I just want to talk about that little chord move. So if you imagine like an A bar chord like this, okay, and a D like this, that's what we're doing, but it's like a simplified kind of punchier version. So we're just playing the strings in the middle, the D, G and the B strings. So you want to play the 7th, 6th and 5th frets for the A. Whenever you want the D, you just flatten this finger down, so you're essentially barring all the way across the 7th fret. And that's it. The other one I did there actually, the intro was quite good. This is an A to D again. So if you think of an A chord like this, and if you think of this as a wee bit of a head melter, but if you think of a C-shaped D major chord, so you know how you can play a C like this, you just moved everything up to here. If you know your cage system, this will make sense. If it doesn't, I do apologise, but essentially you got these notes here, again the D, G and B strings for the A. Then for the D, you're going to bring this finger up to the 4th fret, you keep that one on the 2nd, bring this one up to the 3rd. So there are two really nice ways of going from an A to D with a different voicing, and it saves you just from, or you know, the standard. Really useful if you're double tracking or kind of layering guitar parts. It's just slight differences. It can give you a much bigger sonic image. Okay, so to break down what I've got going on with the delay here, I've got one delay set to 800 milliseconds, which is hard pan to the left, one set to 16, so twice as long, which is set to the right. So you get this kind of sound. And you can use a scratch or a chord like Brian May did to kind of get a sense of the time, how fast we need to play. So the speed will be about 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could chug at that, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just playing where the delays are. I can double up my picking, so instead of playing quarter notes I can play 8th notes. And provided I'm in time, the delay will sound nice and in sync. If I speed up, you can hear it's getting messy, right? So you need to have a really nice steady. And then you can start adding in little melodies and layers over the top. So there, all I'm doing is chugging on the open E and playing these notes here. Right, and what we can do is kind of go up the scale in thirds. I'm just going to wing this, and you don't have to bear with me. But okay, so you get quite a cacophony from playing what is essentially very little. To explain what I'm doing in a bit more detail, I had that chug going on. I've turned the delay off now so we can hopefully hear it a bit more clearly. And I've just got this little slow phrase here, right? And I was just taking that through the scale, harmonising what you call thirds, because I know these are going to sound nice. So I suppose I'm in A major here. So after that I did. So what you're hearing with the delay essentially is those notes together. These notes through the delay I just played, and then the notes I currently play on top of them. And then went up another third. So we're essentially getting like a kind of chord over the top through the delay. It's harmonising with it. Then went up to these notes. With the bends, I think I bent an A to a B. Then I just harmonised that a third higher, so we got a C sharp to a D. Again, a third higher than that, so this would be a fifth higher than that first bend I did. Going from an E to an F sharp. And then I would have done here a G up to an A. So we've got kind of like a A dominant 7 type sound going on. And then I think I hit an A just by itself to round the whole thing up. That was a bit more in the style of Brian May, so let's look at something that he actually did verbatim. So he played these notes. I might have fingered this wrong because the camera cut away, so I do apologise, but the theory and the idea remains the same. If we stick the delay on again, get the timing. So because it's the same rhythm but taken through the scale, then you have that again. The notes all line up and harmonise really nicely, in sixth this time, which is kind of like an inverted third. But because we just played these notes, the delay is going to pick them up and play them while I play these notes, which will harmonise nicely. So if I kind of try and play those together, you got these ones that are in the delay compared to the lower ones that we'd be currently playing. Then you'd be down to here. So again, the higher one's the delay, that's the one we're playing. Delay would be playing this note as we play this one. And then the delay will play this note as we play this one. Oops, sorry, it won't. That was the wrong note. That one there. And then it gets complicated a step further because we had the left and the right delay. So when we move down to the final bit, all the notes we previously played are playing on top of it. So a final time with the delay just for good measure. I'm going to roll my tone pot down all the way to get a super sickly sweet sound. Let's slow it down without the delay. Right, here's that a bit closer up if you want to try it out for yourself. And just watch out for what I said before, the delay can come back to haunt you, so if you make a mistake, like... At some point it'll work its way out, but there's going to be a hairy section, so if you do hit a dead note, just try and persevere through it. Click there if you want to learn the signature licks, hit subscribe and enable all notifications to make sure you don't miss out on new videos like this. But yeah, take it easy guys, have a good one. This is fine.